Pier Giorgio Frassati was born on April 6, 1901.
This is the church of the martyrs of Fabian and Sebastian. Oh, and so this is the church that Pier Giorgio's parents got married in. And this is the church where he also completed his baptism. Because when he was born, they believed he had respiratory failure and problems, and they didn't know if he was going to survive. So they did an emergency baptism. And the family wanted to do a baptism so they could invite the whole family, to join in the celebration. So instead of doing it almost right away after he overcame the danger of death, they waited for 5 months. The completion of the sacrament of the baptism was done here in this church. His baptism was completed. It's a copy of, so it says certification of 1901.
Here in Pollone, Pier Giorgio Frassati was not only baptized, but also it was a place in which he grew up, visiting it frequently, as he would come and stay in Via Frassati with his maternal grandparents and all of his family. Blessed Pier Giorgio actually grew up in Turin, Italy. His father was agnostic and was a very well-respected Italian man, owner of La Stampa newspaper, and his mother was an artist.
God bless you. We find ourselves in the heart of Turin, and we're in a very special place. This is actually the house where Pier Giorgio Frassati was baptized and also where he died. And here he lived with his family throughout his childhood and his adulthood. And right around the corner in the rotunda is the Church of the Crocetta, where he received also all his sacraments. So this is a very important place in the life of Pier Giorgio Frassati.
Questa è la parrocchia dove è cresciuto e ha alimentato la sua fede Pier Giorgio Frassati. È nato e abitava qui davanti proprio, e in questa chiesa tutte le mattine veniva a fare la comunione e diceva: al mattino Gesù mi fa visita nella comunione, alla sera ricambio la visita visitando i poveri. San Giovanni Bosco e di là Pier Giorgio Frassati.
Growing up, he loved to visit the Villa Frassati because it was close to the mountains which he loved to hike and to climb. He would often hike all the way to the shrine of Our Lady of Europa, where he would attend Mass, say his prayers, and continue to grow in the faith that his grandmother had instilled in him. Pier Giorgio's selfless and virtuous heart are reflected in the choices that he would make, first within his own home, to be a peacemaker, as his parents were already having difficulty in their marriage. Also with his friends, he would always challenge them and in this way bring them closer to the Lord, inviting them to hikes and to Mass. Finally, in his love with the poor, Pier Giorgio Frassati selflessly gave of himself, of all that he had, and embraced every opportunity in order to be able to serve and to supply for the needs of those who were most in need around him. These choices were not always looked upon with favor on behalf of his family, as he came from a wealthy and cultured family, and certain expectations were placed upon him. And despite his deep piety, Pier Giorgio was anything but gloomy. He was athletic, full of life, and loved nature. He enjoyed hiking, skiing, swimming, biking, ice skating, horseback riding, and especially climbing mountains. His favorite motto was Verso, to the heights, a phrase which truly captures his love for the mountains and also his desire for holiness. Pier Giorgio truly lived a life in fullness. However, on June 29th of 1925, he contracted polio. Many believe from one of the sick people he was helping in the slums. Since his grandmother was very ill, he didn't want to draw attention to himself, and when his family left him alone in order to go to the funeral of his grandmother, he realized that he could no longer get out of bed on his own. By the time the family returned, they brought the best doctors and tried to acquire for him the best medicines in order to cure him, but it was already too late. Even as he was dying, his final words were instructions that he gave to a friend, asking him to take medicine to a poor person he had been visiting. Pier Giorgio passed away on July 4th, 1925, at the age of 24. His death was a surprise for many, not only because his illness had been unknown to his family, but also because at his funeral, the streets were packed with the poor, the orphaned, those who had been most in need, that Pier Giorgio had assisted, had given them clothing, his time, his attention, and all that he could to relieve their sufferings. He was first buried in the cemetery in Pollone, where the family crypt can still be visited. When his remains were exhumed in 1981, he was found to be completely intact and incorrupt, and his body was transferred then to the cathedral in Turin. St. John Paul II visited this tomb, and on May 20th, 1990, he called Pier Giorgio the man of the Beatitudes. St. John Paul II shared, "I wanted to pay homage to a young man who was able to witness to Christ with singular effectiveness in this century of ours. I too in my youth felt the beneficial influence of his example, and as a student I was impressed by the force of his Christian testimony. The particular clarity of his testimony springs from his radical adherence to Christ, from the generosity of his missionary work. He offered to all an example which even today has lost nothing of his magnetic attraction. I wish everyone, especially the young, to draw inspiration and encouragement from his short but radiant life of consistent Christian witness." Like St. John Paul II, Pier Giorgio Frassati loved the Eucharist, and he would go every single day to have a holy hour before the Blessed Sacrament. Sometimes he would have to jump from the window of his house to escape, as his mother would prefer that he would stay studying, and he would make his way to this church where he would accompany the Lord for an hour. Pier Giorgio was a lay Dominican, a member of the Third Order of St. Dominic within the Dominican Order, and it was with this spirituality that he was able to grow in his commitment in the faith, especially with a profound love to our Blessed Mother and the Holy Rosary. It was here in the Basilica of La Consolata in Turin that Pier Giorgio Frassati used to meet his friends right under the brick tower, and together they would go help the poor in the neighborhood, which at that time was a neighborhood of underprivileged men and women. We have the great gift that many of Pier Giorgio's items, such as the letters that he would write, journals from his studies, books that he would read, even items that he would use on his hikes when he would hike from Pollone all the way to the shrine of Our Lady of Europa, photographs of him with his friends as he would evangelize them throughout the hikes, are preserved and available for pilgrims to see. Pier Giorgio Frassati, pray for us.